first, I would like to welcome all the speakers, all the participants that are connected with us virtual. Secondly, I would like to thank the Secretariat of the Intergroup, Sustainable Long-Term Investments and Competitive European Industry, and Orgaline that have organized and did all the work putting this seminar together, and really did a good organization to allow us to have this important discussion. I am one of the co-chairs of this intergroup, together with my colleagues Simona Bonafé and Dominique Riquet. This intergroup, it is the first time that we have such intergroup devoted to industry and investment altogether. And I think that is a very important platform to give to the stakeholders and to the MEPs the possibility to look at such an important topic as industry and the future of competitive industry in Europe, and the matters related with the investment in new industry, and also the matters related with new technologies and how they will be applied in the industry, that we look at this in a horizontal, holistic way. Because in our work in the European Parliament, we are dividing committees, as we know. And for example, in ITRE, we look very much on the research, innovation, technology, industry, but from this point of view, in INCO, we look from the internal market point of view. In ECON, we look from the economic point of view. And in this intergroup, it's very interesting because we have MEPs from all these committees, and we discuss in a really holistic way the importance of the industry and the investments in the industry, taking into consideration all these points. And at the moment that we are facing so many challenges in Europe, that we are starting, we hope, what is a recovery of our economy and the transition period where we want to transform our economy and our industry to make it more modern, more resilient to crisis. We are facing a lot of dossiers in the European Parliament that really requires this holistic approach. We have just dealt this week during the plenary, for example, in the climate law that really needs that is so crucial for the future of our industry and our economy in general, and is a very holistic dossier. And more issues that we are dealing in the European Parliament is, for example, to complement all the Horizon Europe. We are, and I'm the honor to be rapporteur, discussing all the partnerships, the technological partnerships, the partnerships that promotes the cooperation between the private sector and the public sector. There is also one that is public to public, but most of them are promotion of the research and innovation between private and public, a lot of them in areas very important for industry, like the hydrogen, like the bio-based circular economy, like the aviation, the rail. So very important to our economy, and we are discussing these dossiers. We are also discussing important dossiers in digital, AI, the regulation of artificial intelligence, the digital single market, the digital market act, that we really need to have an overall approach and to have this dialogue with the stakeholders and with the industry and the investors, how to better do all this regulation and how to design all these investments. We are also having a strong role on the follow-up of the resilience and recovery plan. So we hope that the resilience and recovery plan is well applied, is applied, that not only to make face to the immediately problems that the sectors are facing due to the crisis, but that helps to construct a more modern, resilient, competitive future for our industry and for our economy. So all these are topics that we will be able to discuss today, and how research and innovation and technology plays a role in all of this. I usually say that we have two ways to face challenge like the climate change, or reduce the pollution, or we change completely our way of life, or we have clean, affordable technology that we can use. And take, for example, of aviation. If we want to continue to get mobile, to be mobile, to be able to fly, we really need to invest in research and innovation that will allow us to have planes that are they have less impact in the environment and in the climate change issue. And for that, it's so important that also the public sector helps the private sector to develop or electric planes or hydrogen planes. And this is just an example. It's the same for the car industry, for the rail industry, for the energy the sectors of the industry that consume a lot of energy. So a lot to be done, because some of the technologies already exist but need to be scaled up, and some still do not exist and need further research in order that we can do this transition without damaging the economy and without changing drastically our way of life. We want to continue to have our mobility, we want to continue to live in comfortable houses, and if we don't have better technology, we will not be able to do that without having a very negative impact in our planet in terms of environment and climate change. So all that, the research and innovation and technology is the solution to make compatible the economy, our way of life, and the impact on environment and climate change. It's through research and innovation and technology that we can close this circle in a positive way. So it's all that we are going to discuss today. And I thank you all, and I thank you very much Commissioner Maria Gabriel, that has been always very supportive of our ideas and our events, and is putting together also a path for research and innovation, and the idea that we not only need the European research area, but a European innovation area, where all these topics need also to be discussed. That we discuss innovation, because if we have research, we need to apply this research for the good of humanity and our economy. So thanks, and we will listen Maria Gabriel after my introductory remarks. Thank you very much for all.
Yes, a very warm welcome also from my side. Thank you very much, Maria. I'm Oliver Blank, not Maria Gabriel. She will be here in a second, but I have the pleasure to be your moderator for this discussion that we have today. And I would quickly like to run you through the agenda that we have foreseen for this discussion round. We will start after the keynote address by Commissioner Gabriel with a keynote high-level discussion between Maria da Gracia Carvalho and Rada Rodrigues, the president of Orgalim. After that, we will have a panel discussion with some colleagues from the European Commission, from DG GROW, from DG RTD. We also have Thomas Bitter with us from Volvo, and this discussion will also be joined then again by Maria and by Rada. I would like to welcome all our speakers that we have today. First of all, Rada Rodrigues, the president of Orgalim, who is with us, and then also Ulla Engelmann. She is acting director networks and governments from DG GROW in the European Commission. We have Peter Droll with us. He is director for prosperity. What a great title you have there, Peter, from DG RTD from the European Commission. We have Thomas Bitter, the Senior Vice President, Technology from Volvo. And then, as I mentioned later on for the panel discussion, again, also Maria Entrada. This is the program for today. And with that, I think we can start with the address by Commissioner Gabriel. It might take a few seconds for technology to run. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Honourable Member of the European Parliament, Maria da Graça Carvalho, dear Mrs. Rodrigues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the organisers of this event for inviting me to address you today. This is a timely discussion as we are about to emerge from a deep crisis during which our society and our economy have suffered. It is now time to build back better, greener, more inclusive and more digital. How can technology and innovation can help Europe's competitiveness? How you can contribute to the initiatives the Commission is putting in place? Firstly, with the more strategic European partnerships, we are aiming at aligning the investments from the public and the private sector around key technological challenges, such as hydrogen, clean aviation, or innovative medicines. With a strong directionality towards applied research, our goal is to deliver ready-to-use innovations on the market. Let me seize this opportunity to warmly thank the efforts of Maria da Graça Carvalho, dear Maria, to adopt the Single Basic Act and the EIT strategic agenda, so the first calls could be released by the end of the year. By working hands in hands with the industry, we want to reinforce its competitiveness in these critical areas so that we can lead on the global stage on future health, green and digital technologies. And I encourage you to participate too and guide these partnerships towards excellent results. This goes hand in hand with our renewed support for the development of industrial alliances in the updated industrial strategy and for the important projects of common European interest with which partnerships will create significant synergies, for example, on clean aviation. Secondly, with Horizon Europe, we go new ways to foster breakthrough innovation, especially via the European Innovation Council. Indeed, with our common efforts, we can transform the European Innovation Council into the European Unicorn Factory. With this objective, it will help innovation in Europe through different channels. One, by increasing diversity in the innovation ecosystems, by promoting women-led innovation and startups. Two, by connecting the innovators, creating an EIC community in which best practices would be exchanged. And three, by enhancing European scale-up capacity, by financing, for the first time in the European history, companies and not projects through the EIC funds and venture capital. Given the urgency of supporting startups and SMEs during the pandemic, its work program for the next 2 years has already been launched in March with a budget over €1 billion. We also want to go beyond by building with the innovators a pan-European innovation ecosystem to unlock our potential. Your views on this are welcomed. We have to build this together if we want to make it a success. Thirdly, the Recovery and Resilience Facility. That constitutes a unique opportunity to advance Europe's R&I agenda and to design and implement much needed, even difficult, reforms backed up by adequate funding. A large majority of member states have now submitted their recovery and resilience plans, and I'm glad to see that overall the plans contain relevant research and innovation measures both within dedicated R&I components and also integrated into other policy areas. Indeed, it is essential that all sectors invest in R&I to reinforce their innovative capacities and to create stronger links with the research sector. To conclude, I would like to highlight that we have the tools for Europe to lead on the green and digital transitions, and it is up to us, up to you, to make best use of them in favor of a sustainable and competitive European industry at the service of all European citizens. I encourage you to share your views on how we can foster R&I in your sectors. I very much count on your contribution because you have an important role to play. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Commissioner Gabriel. We pass on our thanks to you and your team, and thank you for the inspiration. I think a lot of key words that are on the table for the moment have already been mentioned by the Commissioner. So I think it's good to discuss what we can concretely do now. And I would like to welcome again Maria and Rada Rodriguez. Rada Rodriguez is the president of Orgalim. And just wait until we see them also on the screen. Rada is here now, and Maria will come in a second there. Rada, thank you very much for joining us. You are not only the president of Orgalim, but you are very experienced on the industry side, having worked for Schneider Electric, now as the CEO of Signify. So you know many branches which are at the forefront of technologies here in Europe and globally. And you are also a true European because you have lived and worked in many, many countries. So I think you have a very, very broad perspective. And I would like to start our high-level discussion together with Maria with the question, from your experience and from your perspective, I mean, how can Europe become a global technology leader? Where do we need to focus on, and what do we need to do? Rada, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Oliver, so much. Thank you, Maria, for inviting me at this event. And thank you, you and the Intergroup for organizing this event. As both Commissioner Gabriel and you said in your introduction, the topic of innovation, the topic of advanced technologies is extremely important for Europe in order to develop further and also to make the green and the digital transition so that we can keep our lifestyle and still do not harm the environment. Just briefly, let me say who is Orgalim. We are representing the technology industry in Europe, so the manufacturing industry. Three big sectors: electrical, electronic, machine engineering and metal technology. And we are 1/3 of European export. This is important because that means also that we are very innovative, and not only our sectors, but the European industry tends to be very innovative because we are in a very tough environment of competition, of global competition, and we are not alone on the market. And I think the discussion we will have today will focus on how to remain competitive and how to increase our competitiveness, as we see that other regions are also going in the same direction as we, putting money and investing a lot in advanced technologies. For our sectors, the innovation is at the core of the growth strategy in order to remain competitive. So that's why it's extremely important that we have, that the policymakers are creating a framework which facilitates innovation and fosters innovation. Our technologies are transversal technologies, and I think the important thing here when it comes to having a leading role, Europe as a leading role, as Oliver was asking, is to understand that on one side, advanced technologies are enabling the green and digital transformation of many sectors in the industry and in the society. And at the same time, we are transforming our own industry by becoming more efficient and more sustainable, and also by creating new business models. So all these new technologies, and let me, I mean, with one word, we say advanced technologies, advanced manufacturing technologies. But what we are talking about artificial intelligence, we are talking about microelectronics, we are talking about cybersecurity solutions, we are talking about the digital twins, new materials, new manufacturing methods like the additive manufacturing. quantum technology. So all these technologies, we are developing ourselves to enable the transformation of other sectors, and we are implementing them in our own manufacturing facilities in order to remain competitive on the global scene. I hope, Oliver, I answered. It was a long answer, so.
Thank you very much, Rada. No, this was very perfect, laying the ground for a bit of an in-depth discussion over here. I would like to follow up with one question, because you have mentioned already AI, I think, which is very important. We have just seen a commission proposal, which we discussed now, a risk-based approach over here, where I think we have also questions. We discuss about robotics, we discuss about microelectronics, other key enabling technologies. You mentioned the digital twins as well. I think these are all very important areas. But the question is also, how can we encourage actually also the adoption of new technologies? Is this just a question of regulation, of the regulatory framework? Is it also about mentality? I mean, what is the recipe for success over here in your view?
Yes, thank you. I don't think it's a one-fits-it-all solution. Definitively, a mindset is it's always important, but there are also other much more difficult to tackle things. First is the investment. These are very expensive technologies. So yes, they exist on the market. Some of them are very new. Some of them are still under development. Some are more mature. But regardless how mature they are or less mature, they are expensive technologies. So especially when it comes to small mid-sized companies, they need a lot of help in order to deploy already these existing technologies. And then, of course, we need further to develop those ones which are in the start. And here, from my point of view, I would say it's important not to regulate too much too soon, so that we can have this space of innovating and maturing these new technologies. Investment, it's very important. It's not only about public money, it's a lot about private money, but how do we enable or how do we trigger that more private money is going, as well as public money, going in the transformation of the manufacturing sector. It is about research and development. It is about the framework, the political framework, the single market, the single digital market. And here, one of the important tools is standardization. And all this put together is creating an environment which is friendly or not, if we miss to do that, in order to foster the new technologies and the innovation in Europe.
Thank you, Rada. Turn to Maria. I mean, how do you think we should proceed here in Europe? I mean, is it really a matter of very detailed regulation that we need to have in all areas, or do we need to leave more freedom also as well for new technologies to develop, as Rada just has said? What is your perspective here from the European Parliament side?
Thank you very much, and I would like to welcome Rada and thank her for her participation. I fully agree that, especially for new technologies and emerging technology, we need to be very careful with regulation. We should not over-regulate. We should not try to regulate everything, all the details, all the scenarios, and there is a tendency in Europe to do that we will delay innovation because things are changing very fast. And even we have such a complex cycle of the decision making in Europe that we risk, when we finish to the negotiations and through with the Parliament, with the Council, and all the trialogues, that the regulation will be already not applicable anymore. So we really need to be flexible in our regulation. And I agree with many things that Rada said, that in order to attract the private sector to adopt the new technologies, is very much this framework, rather called framework, I usually call the ecosystem, that has a lot of things inside. The regulation is one, appropriate, flexible, simple regulation, less bureaucracy. Also the standardization is very important. The regulation we should make sure that we look to the standardization, and we also in our agreements with our neighbors and other parts of the world. That is part, because this increases our market of our industries. But it includes also a lot of other things that depends on the member states, like the justice system that should be also not very long for the questions related with investments. So the judicial system, some of our member states have problems with that is not good for the investment. So this is all questions that I call the ecosystem for investment, or the ecosystem for innovation. They are very, very similar. But we need to have more availability of investments in new technologies, and to continue to invest in research, both at the European level and the member states level, and of the private level. And on the research, we need to regain this culture of the experimental work and the manufacturing. We have lost some of this component in Europe, and mainly in the digital. So I'm very pleased that we are organizing this event with several companies on this sector, because this is a sector that we really need to push. We need to have in order to lead in the digital area, we need to have a capacity to manufacturing in Europe at the highest level, the new technologies. And the point that was still not yet mentioned, I suppose rather didn't mention this, is the skills. We need to have a lot of engineers, researchers on these new technologies in these areas. And on this topic, I draw the attention for the attracting more women, because we are lacking skilled persons in these areas, because we're not attracting enough women for this area. And I have done a report on this, on the women on ICT, and we have a tremendous gender gap in this area of the ICT, and the importance of role models that young girls see that are women very well succeed in the area, and that can be very important. And Rada is a role model, so we appreciate very much that she will speak public, attracting more young girls for these areas of new technology, for industry, for the digital is very, very important. So all that is needs to be done. We have an opportunity in the next few 3-4 years with the resilience and recovery plan, but it needs to be well applied, and it needs to be in parallel the member states to do the reforms that are necessary, because it's not only a question of money. But I think we can speak about this a bit later.
Thank you, Maria. I think these were very good points. I would like to follow up very briefly on 3 issues that have been mentioned with you, Rada. The first one, you mentioned standardization. Here, I would like to follow up what is needed actually now in Europe, also in the global context. The other area that was mentioned by Maria was also the global cooperation. I mean, what do we need to own here in Europe? Where do we need to have access to as well in global value chains? And the last point is also on skills. I think the question here is also, I mean, what companies need to do to make sure that we stay and we become more innovative also in the future. If you could briefly elaborate a bit on these 3 points. Thank you.
I will try. I mean, standardization is a big topic, so I will try to summarize what was discussed also in the different forums over the last weeks. It is a very powerful instrument for us, for the industry, in putting really in place the single market. So the harmonized standards is absolutely a requirement, a basic requirement in order to make the single market, to make it happen. On the other side, we see that we are more and more digitizing the industry, which means that more and more software is coming everywhere. And software standardization has a different dynamic compared to the hardware standardization. So we have to make sure that we combine these two worlds. We are very good, and we have been for decades extremely well in making fantastic, powerful standards for hardware, which became also global standards. And by this, we became very much global players, and we could manage that, and we could lead the sector. Now we have to make sure that also with the digitization coming more and more in, and the merge between software and hardware, that we don't lose that that leadership. So the standardization process needs to change, needs to adapt, needs to be faster, need to be more flexible. On the other side, we need also our people from the industry which are involved in the standardization process needs to step up, so that we are up at the challenge. And also from the public point of view, from the commissioner point of view, and the member states point of view, we need to make sure that the processes are lean, are fast, so that we are not queuing in harmonizing standards. So very briefly, that is what I see for the next step in the standardization challenges.
Thank you very much, Rada. I think we can catch up on some of the other issues later on in the discussion, and this would be the moment where I would like to broaden a bit the discussion with the other panelists, and would like to ask them to turn on their camera and to join us over here, so that we can. Yes, and Ulla Engelmann there as well. Perfect. Yes, I see you all now. Very good. Thank you. Yes, I think it's a good moment to broaden the discussion now, and to bring in some other views and some other players as well. I would like to discuss with you during the next roundabout hour how we can boost innovation and technological development to support the industrial strategy and the EU recovery. And again, a very warm welcome to the new colleagues joining us over here: Ulla Engelmann from DG Grow, Peter Doll from DG RTD, and Thomas Bitter from Volvo. And before we go into the discussion, because we would also like to keep this a bit interactive, I mean, it's a digital format. You, the audience, you see us, we don't see you. But even so we don't see you, we want to hear a bit from you. So we will have two polls coming up within the next time. And here is the first poll. So we would like to ask you a question and hope for some answers and some guidance over here. And the question is, what should Europe focus its investments on? And you have the choice among 5 answers. The first one is our strengths, where we should focus on, where we already are leaders. The second one is reducing our weaknesses, the areas where we lag behind. The third one is people and skills. Then if you believe that it should be in all areas, you can say in all areas equally. And well, last but not least, if you do not have any opinion, this is also a point that you can mark. So I would like to ask you to cast your vote here, and we will have a look at this result in a few seconds. Thank you. Here we see the results. This is very interesting because I think the majority of you believes we need to invest in all areas equally. This is followed with a short margin by investments in people and skills. Then we have, let's say, 20% who say we should reduce our weaknesses and invest in the areas where we lag behind today in the global context. And only 11% believe that we need to concentrate investments more on our strengths and where we already are leaders. Thank you very much. I think this is a very interesting result that we have from the discussion, and we will take that up as well in the points that are made by the panelists later on. I would like to bring you in, and I would first like to ask Peter Droll, Director for Prosperity. As I said, this is a very interesting new title that you have got here, Peter. I think it would be very good to know more about your activities, your focus areas that you have for the moment as regards putting innovation at the forefront here in Europe. Peter, the floor is yours for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Oliver, and hello to all. Great to be here. First of all, why is industry so important? It is 1 in 5 jobs, and it's high quality jobs. Second, why is research and innovation so important? We heard it during yesterday and the day before. We had our research and innovation days, and many of you were present. And I think the Portuguese minister brought it really very clearly to one point. Science, Manuel Heiter, science heals and creates new markets. And that is, we have seen that in the pandemic. And what we've heard from Maria and from Graça Carvalho and our Commissioner Gabriel, the partnerships with industry, the directionality due to the twin transition, that is something very important for the innovativeness of Europe and Europe's industry, because we had, I think, never had such a clear signal on climate neutrality, on the digital decade, which is clear for investments. So it gives the direction for all investors, the direction of travel. And we have translated that in the 4 years priorities of Horizon Europe, our research and investment framework program. And you have there 4 strategic key objectives: open strategic autonomy, climate neutral, circular, competitive economy. Third, restoring ecosystems, and inclusive democratic societies. Because we have seen that societies polarize and risk to fall apart, and which is important for risk for Europe's cohesion, if there is no strong industrial basis and science basis. So these are the direction at a level a bit lower than the green. So it's how we translated the Green Deal and the digital decade into the investment priorities. And this will be the guiding principles for us to look at the proposals. So the second point I wanted to make here very briefly is about what Graça called a holistic approach, a system approach. And here I can make a comment about my title. I'm very proud of it, but it is because we have oriented the entire research and innovation department of the EU towards transition to sustainability. So we have a directorate for planet, for people, and for prosperity. And that shows you also the direction Europe's research and innovation is taking. So this system approach, this is reflected in the way we co-created the investment priorities. We co-created and prioritized the partnerships with industry mentioned by Maria, and we will co-create these transition pathways to sustainability. And that is, and I'm stopping here. That is a good transition to my dear colleague and friend Ulla from DG Grow, because in the update of the industry strategy, there is one chapter, co-creating pathways to transition, with a reference to the partnerships in Horizon Europe as a basis, with a reference how we will link these partnerships to alliances, the ecosystems, that is a system approach, and with reference to the European research area industrial technology roadmaps. Maybe I come back to that later, but I stop here, Oliver.
Thank you, Peter. I think it's an excellent transition pathway to Ulla Engelmann from DG Grow. Ulla, as has been mentioned, the European Commission has outlined on the 5th of May its updated industrial strategy. So we would like to hear a bit more from your side on how this industrial strategy approach actually is helping Europe to become more innovative. Please, Ulla, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And as you pointed out, we have the updated industrial policy package, which was published on the 5th of May. And but that means also what we have published, because we called it updated industrial policy package, what was published last March, not this March, but March 2020, is still valid. And we have now included in the update the lessons learned from the crisis. And these are the need to reinforce our single market, the need to address our strategic dependencies, and the need to accelerate the green and digital transitions in order to meet our increasingly ambitious target of 55% emissions reduction by 2030. So if we look at the twin, the green and digital transition and how to accelerate, there we have these large opportunities ahead of us to position Europe as a technological and industrial leader of this transition. And that's why we really need to build on EU's pioneering R&I capacities and the industrial base. And therefore, we really need to have this commitment that businesses are getting committed to the green transformation because it is a clear business case and an advantage of first movers. But companies need to be accompanied, and technology and innovation will play a key role here. And specifically for advanced manufacturing, this was also acknowledged in the staff working document because it was a whole package which we published on the industrial strategy on strategic dependencies and capacities. There we have data which come from our Advanced Technologies for Industry Monitor, and we could show the EU currently maintains sound technological leadership, with European firms delivering a wide range of advanced manufacturing equipment, which are key enablers for production lines around the world. And technology output by research and innovation value chain can have a real impact only when these respective technologies, including advanced manufacturing, are taken up by industry and our SMEs. And therefore, to reinforce the business case of the twin transition, our industry needs a coherent regulatory framework, access to capacities and infrastructure, access to finance, access to raw materials, decarbonized energy, and the right skills. And standards supporting twin transformation and leadership in green and digital will be equally important. So for this, we really need research and innovation that are necessary to incentivize European industrial and business leadership in a number of key ecosystems. And just to name some of them, mobility, aerospace, defense, low carbon industries, data, electronics, or construction, which are really, they need to be strongly linked with the twin green and digital transition. And therefore, we are now keen to have a pragmatic understanding of the needs of these different industrial ecosystems. And as a basis, we have in another staff working document what we call the ecosystem fissures. This is our baseline. And from this baseline, we want to develop transition pathways. And this transition pathways should be developed in a real co-creation process, need to build, for example, on the technology roadmaps, need to be fed by different processes, amongst others also the industrial forum, which will meet and where also RADA is part of next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ulla. And I think this leads us to another industry voice, Thomas Bitter from Volvo. Thomas, what is actually Volvo doing in terms of innovation, and what kind of framework do you need also here in Europe? Please, Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you. You know that Volvo is providing transport solutions and infrastructure solutions to a global customer base. And some of our brands and some of our business areas have done that very successfully for more than 100 years. But we are at a point where we understand that what has made us successful in the past is not what is going to make us successful in the future. And if we can eventually share one simple picture that illustrates what the task is ahead of us for us in the Volvo Group, but maybe as well for other industries, we have clearly understood the requirements from Paris, and supported by the Science Based Targets Initiative, we have committed to turn our company into a producer of fossil-free transport solutions. Today, almost 100% of our assets, be it a truck or a bus or a wheel load or an excavator, is powered by an internal combustion engine and mainly fueled by diesel. But we have made this commitment, which means that in the next 10 years, we are going to focus on turning our power sources in our machines and vehicles into sustainable power, either based on battery electric or on fuel cell electric. And that will allow us in the next 20 years to provide to our customers a portfolio of buses, of trucks, and of machines that are carbon neutral. And as a consequence, it will allow our customers by 2050, 30 years from now, to have a carbon neutral rolling fleet. Then you can understand that this is a huge task. It is a quantum leap in our industry, and we can't do that all by ourselves. And that's where we are very grateful that we have the opportunity to participate in discussions like these, organized by the European Industry Intergroup and sponsored by Orga Lim. I think it's a huge adventure that we have to do jointly.
Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, let's continue with the adventure, at least in this discussion that we are having today. And we would turn again to the audience, because we would like to have your view on innovation policy and on industrial strategy. And we have prepared another question, which will come up on the screen in a second. And I'm going to lead you through this then. Here it is. In your opinion, is there a clear link between innovation policy and industrial strategy? There are 4 answers you can choose among. The first one is yes, they follow the same objectives. The second one, yes, but there are a few gaps to address. The third one, no, I don't really see a link. And if you don't know, you can also mark. So please cast your vote and we will have a look at the results in a few seconds. Thank you. And we have a result. So is there a clear link between innovation policy and industrial strategy? The majority, 58% of you say yes, but there are a few gaps to address. About half of them say yes, they follow the same objectives, and another 14% say no, I don't really see a link. These are independent policies and independent areas. It's very interesting, and I think it lays also a bit the ground for some more detailed discussion that we will continue now in the panel. And I would like to continue with the industry representatives that we have on the panel here. So my question would be mainly also then to Rada first and then to Thomas. We have heard about the Horizon Europe program already with a lot of good intentions and good activities over here. But in your view, does the Horizon Europe program sufficiently support the objectives that we have in the industrial strategy? Maybe Rada, you first and then Thomas. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. A very interesting discussion. So I will try to answer your question, but I just wanted to say I feel very tempted to link a little bit the discussion on what Peter was saying, on what Ulla was saying. But I will try to concentrate on your question about Horizon Europe. I believe the program is important and it can boost the competitiveness of Europe when it comes to research. I would say for the industry, it's very important that we are discussing also about the applied research and discuss demand research, so the research which it's created by or it's following the demand of the industry. I also believe that the program is extremely important for the SMEs, because the SMEs need not a lot of help in order to deploy the already existing advanced technologies in order to become more efficient and more competitive, but also to get help to develop their ideas and how to bring more innovative offers on the market. So I also believe that it is important that the industry is strongly involved when it comes to choosing the directions of the development, that our voice is heard, so that we can secure that this advantage, and now I link a little bit to the first poll, the advantage we have today in Europe with a strong innovative industrial base, that this remains as an advantage over the next years as well.
Thank you very much, Rada. And by the way, I think also to all panelists, because it's always not so easy in a digital format to generate some discussions, but of course, feel free to respond also to some of the points that are made by the others here. I think it would be very good to have a bit of discussion, and we don't always have to agree on everything over here. So please pick up any points which are made where you believe you should respond to as well. But with that, I would like to turn to Peter and also to Ulla, because I mean, it's clear that even if we have a strong, let's say, policy framework, that without the companies, without the industry who is developing innovations, putting new ideas also on the market, it's not really possible to drive Europe forward. So where do you actually see, and how do you see the role of business in driving the innovative agenda over here? So maybe Peter first, and then I would also like to ask the same question to Ulla.
Okay, thanks a lot now, and good discussion. So the role of business is key. If you look at the investment needs for the twin transition, we are talking about thousands of billions in the next decade, and this will not be public money. So and this is really the change of infrastructure. And I found the figure from Volvo very interesting. And when we look at production, what are the sunk assets? And you showed very clearly your strategy to turn your current assets into the assets of the future, or replace them actually. The role here of business is crucial. What we can do, and I think what I say it as I think, what we do right now very good at European level is to give this clear signal, this global ambition, first climate neutral continent, as a digital transition, and that brings us that brings so many new opportunities in terms of new jobs, in terms of new markets, if we are not defensive. And that's perhaps one point which I could make here, which relates to the earlier discussion on the role of regulation. I agree with Rada and Maria that we should not over-regulate. At the same time, if you look, we should not use the regulatory debate to lower the targets, lower the ambition. And I think it's very good news for our innovation. It's a huge innovation driver in industry, in all segments of the economy, that we have changed the targets for climate targets for 2030. And we are globally the most ambitious with our 55 targets, 55% for 2030 compared to 1990. So that's a huge innovation driver. So the role I see for industry here is to and that's what I see. What I see now, much stronger than 2 years ago, that companies take the lead with ambitious targets for themselves. We just heard one example here, and yeah, scale this transition and make it cheaper with that. So, and we have put this from the research and innovation perspective in a concept called Industry 5.0, which is adding to the digitalization element this transition to sustainability by making sure that the worker remains at the center of the attention in this transition.
Can I make a comment before Ula's?
Yes, please, Maria, please.
On the industrial strategy that Ula has the possibility to answer. Probably, as you know, our political group has been quite vocal with some criticisms to the update industrial strategy based on the fact that we don't see enough synergies between the industrial strategy and Horizon Europe. We would like that the initiatives build more on the results of the Horizon 2020 and now the Horizon Europe, that the partnerships are more present inside the industrial strategy. So we have been pushing very much for this, and we would like to listen from Ula what she has to say about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And Ula, would you like to respond to that and also to the role of business maybe on the same time?
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, first of all, on what Peter has said, fully aligned, of course, and also maybe that shows, as Peter also said in the beginning, we have very strong cooperation between what his directorate and in this case also my directorate, but within DG GROW, my directorate is also the one coordinating the participation of our DG GROW colleagues in the Horizon Europe part. So I think we really fully acknowledge and build on Horizon Europe, and it is extremely important to have this link. It is really, we are looking into different ways how we can strengthen these synergies. We are looking how to make it, let's say, real. And you have particularly pointed out the uptake of research results, not only because Horizon Europe is only starting now, but the Horizon 2020 results. And just to give you one example, on what we call the InnoSubs, which were already the projects with a lot of involvement of industry. We are really seeing how can this be built, and what we are doing. We are using our networks, because we have on one hand throughout Europe the cluster networks, which are part of the European Cluster Collaboration Platform. And we have the Enterprise Europe network, where we reach out to SMEs, and we are really looking into ways how can we combine that our networks are using what are the outcomes of the results from Horizon. And we have started now quite intensive discussions with also our colleagues and also in the agency ESMEA, because the results are there, but the uptake is now, and there we need, because a single SME will not look at a European website. They do not have the time to do this. So we need to use our SME intermediaries also. And I think they're engaging much more with our networks is one way how to engage with business. So I combine a bit the two questions. And this is something we want to strengthen much more. And of course, we also want to strengthen this with the industrial forum. And we really want now, we want also to have this industrial forum to be very inclusive. And that's why next week what we are proposing is that we have also an interactive website, which is then open to everybody. And we need to find ways that everybody can access this discussion and feed into it. So for us, the synergies between the industrial strategy update and Horizon Europe are really important, and we build on it, and we work along it. If I just make one other point, which I thought was not yet mentioned so much, is the skills part. Some of you have mentioned, and it was in the polls, and I think there also, this is an extremely important point. And from the angle we are coming from, also in close cooperation with our colleagues from DG Employment, is the Pact for Skills. because we think that there is also a huge need for re and upskilling, because and there we are looking into industrial ecosystems, what could be ways to help re and upskilling. But I think this is another area where we probably can also look for more synergies with Horizon Europe also. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulla. I hope, Maria, this answers your questions on the link there. And I think, Ulla, you already brought some other points in here, which we will take up. You mentioned also the industrial ecosystems, for instance, over here. And there has been the new structuring also according to the 14 industrial ecosystems. But I think we from the industry side also are looking into the role of transversal technologies over here. I think this is equally important. And there I would like to turn back again also to Rada, because we are also propagating a bit advanced manufacturing, because we believe Europe already has some strengths here, but this is not really reflected also in the current system. Would you, let's say, elaborate a bit on the ideas that we have here in Orgelim for the moment?
Yes.
And I think this is also in relation to the work of the Industrial Forum. Thank you, Rada.
Absolutely. So thank you. And I will answer directly to Peter. I said it's extremely nice to dream about the Industry 5.0, but believe me, the 4.0 is far from deployed. So we have so much to do to deploy first the 4.0, and then we can always dream on the 5.0. That's one thing. And Industry 4.0, the industry transformation is, again, it's a deployment of advanced technologies, advanced manufacturing technologies. Many of them already exist, so that's not the problem. The problem is that we don't see the scale up. We don't see the real deployment, especially in the small mid-sized companies. And for this deployment, we are fighting, and we are really engaging ourselves how to make sure that also from the recovery fund, the countries are putting, the member states are putting sufficient money, which we don't see today, in the upskilling of the industrial base by deployment the advanced manufacturing technologies. Another thing is that these are, as Oliver very well says, these are transversals. These cannot be allocated to a certain ecosystem. These are going over all ecosystems. So that's why we were calling for a subgroup when it comes to the Industrial Forum. This does not mean that we want a new ecosystem. We want a subgroup to gather all the topics and all the complexity of the deployment of such a transversal technology. So this is a little bit linked to the Industrial Forum. It's linked to the fact that we still have a lot to do in order to deploy what is already, let's say, developed. And again, back to the first poll, when only 11% of the answers was building on our strengths. This is I don't know if everybody understands how fantastic this strength is, having a strong, innovative industrial base. It's not only the social cohesion, which you are mentioning, Peter, which is very important. I mean, just our sectors are standing for 11.3 million of jobs in Europe. So it's the social cohesion, but it is also the generating of private money in R&D and innovation. Depending on what statistic we are looking, 70 to 80% of the private money in R&D is coming from the industrial base. So in order to remain competitive and to develop this industrial base, we need to make the transformation to Industry 4.0. And Industry 4.0 is the deployment of this transversal, very complicated technologies. It means what Maria was also saying, not to overregulate these technologies so that they can mature, make the difference between industrial data and human-related data, because we can't treat them in the same way when we talk machine learning and artificial intelligence. And all these things together needs to be treated in a way which is coherent, and that's why back to the Industrial Forum, we called for that subgroup to tackle in a coherent and structured way these complex topics.
Thank you, Radha. I think it's very important, I mean, to concentrate also on the strengths. I mean, because we in Orgalim also represent, let's say, the technology companies, and they are global companies, and in many areas they are technology leaders. But this cannot be taken for granted. I think we also need to concentrate to secure that we are very strong in certain areas. Thomas, would you consent with that? What have been said here? I mean, on the transversal technologies, on bringing different sectors together as well, on developing Europe forward, or do you have other suggestions here?
I don't have other suggestions. I would echo very strongly what was said before, and I would like to drill on something that we feel is really important. We talked about the sustainability targets that we have, and we can all agree in this forum sustainability is necessary and will bring innovation forward. We mentioned as well the second leg that we have to stand on, which is digitalization. Our products don't have to be only sustainable, they have to be safe, they have to be competitive, profitable, and they have to be connected. And we have to exploit the area of connectivity and the data that comes out of it to create more value for our customers. That is nothing that one single industry sector can do by itself, as it was already said here. And we believe that partnership within industry sectors, but as well across, is the new leadership that we need in Europe. We are much more fractured than maybe other powers in the world, and we have to overcome that. And that is coming through partnership. And I think we have a very strong tradition of partnership in Europe. And just to give you an example, we mentioned our journey, or I mentioned our journey towards hydrogen and electrification. That task is so big that with the support of the European Commission, Volvo Group and Daimler Group, two competitors on the truck side, they were allowed and they were supported to create a joint venture company to investigate, to develop and implement fuel cell technology. Because fuel cell is so demanding and is probably one of the major contributors that we will have. And we cannot do it alone, and we cannot do it in a fractured way. And I think the message is as well, we shouldn't do it from a geographical perspective in a fractured way. It cannot be single countries in Europe that do it. There is no success if we have hydrogen infrastructure in certain parts of our continent, but not in others. That will not help a truck that has to go from Spain to Norway. So the build-up of a green electric network, the build-up of a green hydrogen infrastructure, be it production or charging, is maybe one of the biggest challenge that we could see for our continent and that we can see for our union. But then again, I think it is very good to see that we have the tools and we have the mindset to partner. And maybe back to your earlier question, is Horizon Europe a good tool to do that? I mean, previous programs have shown, like Horizon 2020, that they can boost innovation and technology. And it is very clear that Horizon Europe will do exactly the same. Then it's a question how we use these funds and how we implement them, but that we can debate later on.
Mm-hmm. A lot of very good suggestions, and I think also a lot of good suggestions for the work of the Industrial Forum at the EU level. And we have mentioned that. Maybe just briefly again, also a question to you, Ulla. What is the work plan actually of the EU Industrial Forum in relation to, let's say, the innovation agenda that we have here in Europe? What are you planning next? Because we see a lot of participation from the industry side over here. We have representative from the member states as well in there. I guess there's also some DG coordination on some of the issues. Could you elaborate a bit on how the work is going ahead and what we can expect as regards innovation policy as well as output from the Industrial Forum?
Yes, but we will discuss in the next Industrial Forum, which is on the 29th of June, because we made a proposal and we sent our ideas, our first ideas, to the Industrial Forum. But we want the members of the Industrial Forum to give us their feedback. So we will only, let's say, wrap up a work plan after we get the feedback from the members. And we are also looking very much forward to get concrete proposals from the members, but then not only proposals, but also engagement, because proposing, let's say, subgroups or so is very good, but then it needs to be in a co-creation process, meaning you need to be ready to lead this group and bring others together. So the idea is not to propose subgroups and then we have to do it, but that we do it together, that you take the lead, that you engage. So I think very pleased to hear that there are concrete ideas, and that's what we are looking forward to discuss. And the partnerships with industry, also for the industrial forum. We invited colleagues from the different DGs, and afterwards we will also elaborate then together what to do. And the technological roadmaps are clearly one of the areas where we should work together, where we should see how does this feed, how can we use it also for these different subgroups, because we need to create the synergies. We have a lot of initiatives ongoing, and this was also during the R&I days. Yesterday, a comment from industry saying that there's a lot happening, and we need to make sure on our level also that we bring things together. And I think this is very important, and the industrial forum is one of the elements to help to bring these things together. And what was also mentioned, that we need these partnerships with industry. So what we have with the alliances now, the industrial alliances, is one of these policy tools which we are using to create these partnerships, but it is only one of the policy tools. But I saw also Peter had his hand up. I think he also wanted to comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ulla. Right next to Peter, please.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Yes, I was getting impatient almost. It's a good discussion. There are a couple of points I wanted to come in. So the first one, what Thomas mentioned about the need for coherent approach across Europe. That's behind the point Commissioner Gabriel made when she referred to pan-European innovation ecosystem, and that is so important. That's our biggest added value actually from the European side. So I think that's a very important point. Then Oliver, your point on transversal technologies, this is indeed relevant, and how I think we what I see our ambition actually, and which is already reflected in the governance of our partnership. They should be much more connected than they are currently, not only among themselves, but also to other funding instruments. That relates to the point made by Rada about the applied research. But we know once we are at TRL 8, so tested in real environment, it's still a very long way with substantial investments. So we will link to other programs. Let me just mention the Innovation Fund funded by the Emission Trading System, or the Digital Euro program, which is really about deployment of digital technologies developed with research and innovation funding. And the last point on Industry 4.0, I entirely agree, rather, with your assessment that we still have to implement it, and we provide some substantial support for this under the digital innovation hubs, which are an important tool for that. But let me perhaps explain also what I mean from the research side with Industry 5.0. It's about I agree. Vision without action is a daydream, but action without vision could become a nightmare if we don't get the direction right. And this is so important for us to put industry in the driving seat. The label is then another question, but master this transition, because what we see from our research projects, that of course in the European Research Council, where we think about do frontier research, the role of industry is less important. But the most important successful projects I see in my area are projects where you have universities, research and technology organizations, and industry, because industry is then the solution integrator and our best bet to deploy and scale up.
Thank you, Peter, for the complimenting remarks on that. I think very clear. We also discovered in the chart of DG Grow once Industry 5.0, and we were very curious about that. And I think it's good to know a bit about your vision. I would also expect that the Orgalim president rather will take up some of the points that have been made here in the Industrial Forum next week. So I hope that then it can be teamed up with the work of the European Commission over here. I would like to turn to another subject during the last 10-15 minutes that we have here on the panel, and this is funding for innovation, because it's all about money in the end as well. We have not spoken so much about money here now. We've spoken about skills, about the regulatory framework, about policies, about strategies, and so on. But we have also realized that now with the, let's say, with the next generation EU fund, with the money that is being taken up, and the Commission President is touring the European capitals for the moment to give feedback on the national recovery and resilience plans, that a lot of this money is supposed to be spent in a targeted way. These are the 20% should go to digital, 37% should go into greening, into the projects, and I think this is very positive. I think in general, but it requires also a lot of cooperation, collaboration, probably also checking back and forth that this is done in the right way. And I would like to ask Maria also, because from a European Parliament perspective, and you are following this discussion, I think, also very closely on the funding for innovation over here. What do we need to do together? I mean, European Commission, member states, European Parliament, and maybe also industry in the coming years to make sure that the funds that we have here now, it's quite a lot of money that is really used in a dedicated way, and that brings us forward in Europe. What are your, let's say, your ideas over here, or your requests also as well to the other partners?
Thank you very much. So first, we have a big opportunity for the next few years, as I have said, because the Recovery and Resilience Fund is an extra budget on top of the European budget that the member states and we hope the private sector and people have at their disposal for this, to recover from the crisis and to do the transformation that we need to be more resilient and more competitive in the future. And we need to make sure that the budget is well applied. We had, for example, yesterday in the Research and Innovation Days, one debate about this, and from the European Commission we were heard that so far they have accounted that many member states have put research and innovation as a priority, but until now they have accounted for 35 billion of euros that were that the member states have devolved from their plans to research and innovation. I would expect more, but I suppose research and innovation is embedded also in other areas and doesn't have the label of research and innovation. So I expect that research and innovation will be more than the 35 billion that have been identified by the Commission so far. So very important that all the member states should have this as a priority, together with skills that are so important for our transition. But this is not the only question that is important. Another important is something that was already mentioned here, is that there should be an European coordination to certain projects. Take hydrogen as an example, as it was said. Many member states are devoting in the Resilience and Recovery Fund budget for hydrogen projects, some of them very ambitious projects. But we really need to have a coordination between these strategies, these national strategies, and these national programs at the European level. We cannot have 27 different hydrogen strategies, because we need to have the grids, the pipelines, and the standards, and everything that needs to be done. And so the European Commission has a very important task of coordinating all this to make sure that these things are done in a coordinated way and we don't increase fragmentation. From the side of the Parliament, we also have a group of MEPs that are following and monitoring the application of this Recovery and Resilience Plan. And what else are we doing? We are making sure that in our funding that we are developing still now the regulation inside Horizon Europe, because we have done for the EIT and now we are doing for the partnerships, the public to public, the metrology that in the Commission the responsible is Peter Droll, and to all the other partnerships that are public to private. So I've been both rapporteur of EIT and all the partnerships. What I have included, my colleagues from all the groups have supported me, is that we do a lot of synergies with the regional funds and the resilience and recovery plan. We have also included is, for example, possible to have the national contribution is done from the resilience and recovery plan, because we know that in some of these partnerships, some of the member states have difficulties to enter, to pay their part, like this, there is two advantages. They can be part of this important partnership, and is a higher percentage of their budget that goes to research and innovation. And we are promoting that there are synergies upstream and downstream. Upstream, that they create the conditions through skills and the necessary infrastructures, the necessary laboratories to equip the regions and the countries to be part of these partnerships. And downstream, that they upscale. What Rada said, that is one of the problems in Europe. We don't have enough capacity to upscale. When there is the need to upscale, some of our companies go to the US. We have seen this with a fantastic example of the vaccine, the BioNTech, that was developed. So everything, the knowledge was here, but in order to distribute, they had to do a partnership with Pfizer. And it was the same with Moderna, that said also the roots were in Europe, but in this case they moved to the US, because there is much easier to upscale, not only because of the funding, but all the framework conditions, and much more flexible, much more agile. So we are saying to our member states that they should use recovery and resilience plan to upscale what is developed in these partnerships, but also in other parts of Horizon Europe. We have done that in EIT. Actually, we have put an obligatory budget that should be used from the regional funds for the EIT. So everywhere where we in the Parliament that we are legislating or doing implementation in funding, we include that, so that we show the way, if necessary, if they want, they know how to put more funds on research and innovation, and they do it in a coordinated way. Because, for example, Horizon Europe, like this, the partnerships with hydrogen, again, we have a partnership of hydrogen. So the different strategies of the member states, if they are all part of our European partnership, they are in dialogue, they cooperate, and it makes easier that we have an integrated approach to hydrogen. And we are asking the Commission to do like a catalog, how to proceed, very simple, like in a plane, like for the pilots, do this and that, because we know that synergies are very complex. So, but they don't need to be complex. So if we have a catalog of simple steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, so that SMEs and industry can follow that, and regions, that they know how they can do to do these synergies, will be very important. We have also that in our reports. To us, this is simple catalog.
Thank you, Maria. A quick question back to Peter and to Ulla on that as well. I mean, how is the European Commission following up on this now? I mean, because let's say the approval of the national plans is there, but then how will you follow up and also check on the implementation of the things? Maybe a brief answer from both of you. Peter first, and then maybe Ulla.
Yeah. So we will take this up in our forum with the member states, because it's not only an investment program, it's also a reform program. And this, we have this member state group, the ERA Forum for Transition, and the steering council for that. And that will be the key moment for us to follow up. And just to give you also one figure, what we've seen so far is that in the widening countries, so the less performing countries as regards research and innovation, this Recovery and Resilience Facility represents 1 full year of R&I investment in these countries. So it's a huge push for research and innovation.
Thank you. Ulla, you would like to add something to Peter?
From our side, because it is really an exercise across the whole commission, where the different DGs are of course feeding back and to our colleagues of SG Recover who are managing this process on giving also feedback to the countries on the national plans. And there we are also via our industrial ecosystems on one hand feeding back, and this is also part of why DG GROW has been restructured. We have country units now where we put this information so that we can respond better to the plans and to the implementation of the plans. And of course, we are also using our different expert groups and from the different ecosystems, because they all have different links, and it is important to get them the feedback and to combine on one hand the ecosystem knowledge with the country knowledge.
Okay, thank you. And turning also again to the industry side, because we are also following the implementation of the national plans, and are we aware of all the, let's say, the possibilities that we have over here for cross-border projects, cross-regional projects, as well, cross-industry projects? I mean, is this where is our role as well that we have from the industry side there? Maybe you, Radha, first, and then Thomas.
Well, I think, of course, we have a huge role to play. But what I would like to say, because we are on this financing part, maybe two things. One is that this recovery fund is absolutely one in a lifetime, let's say, opportunity to really use the money in the best way, and we all stay behind the green and digital transformation. I think it's nothing which is let's say under discussion anymore. We are all behind that. Where we are seeing that we lose some of this opportunity, unfortunately, when I'm looking at the plans which we could see so far from the member states, it's really just a fraction which goes to the to the modernization, automation of the existing industrial base. So the whole implementation of the new technology, advanced manufacturing technologies on what is existing already in the member states, we see just a very small part of the money going there. And I think this is a pity. We are losing, we are missing a fantastic opportunity of strengthening what we already have as a strength, and to make it even more competitive for the future. Because every automation of the industrial process, every digital integration of logistics with manufacturing, with customer, it's in the end a boost of efficiency. It is in the end that we will save a lot of raw material, that we will save a lot of energy. So the Industry 4.0 is actually the answer on both the green and the digital transformation when it comes to the manufacturing base. So that is one thing. The second one, which I want to name, is the fact that I think all agree it's not only about the public money, which has to be, I mean, of course, it's a public money, so it has to be very well monitored, and it has to be a lot of transparency where this public money is going. But it's also about huge amounts of private money, which needs to come and to flow in the innovation to make it possible. And here the green taxonomy plays, in my opinion, a very important role. And today we don't see, at least on the first delegated act, hopefully will come the second one, we don't really see that this taxonomy is supporting the new technologies, that it is supporting the transversal technologies. So if these technologies, which proven are saving resources and saving energy and digitizing and, you know, enabling the transformation, the digital and green transformation over the whole society, if these technologies are not seen as green, they will not attract the private capital in form of equity or loans, which is so much needed in order to make these transformations. So these are the two aspects I wanted to raise when it comes on how we want to invest and how do we want to finance these transformations.
Thank you very much, Rada. Thank you. Very clear. Thomas, would you like to add something to that from the industry side?
Yeah, to complement what Rada is saying, something to add is time is of essence. And Peter said earlier that we need a strong collaboration between research and industry. And it should be on all aspects. It should be forward-looking innovation technology, but it should be as well the implementation of existing technology into viable products, because it doesn't help us to have good ideas in Europe and then they are picked up and monetized somewhere else in the world. So we have to see that the funds are covering both research on base technology, but as well the implementation. And I think companies like ours can play a role to find the right balance. And then I would like to come back to the first poll that we had, where it was questioned if it is building on strong points, eliminating weak points, or skills and competence. And I think many people talk about a war of talents that we have in our industry. And at the end, it is talent, competence, people that really will make the difference. And we have to see that we have the right focus on that as well, so that we can attract young women and attract young men into our industries that sometimes have maybe not the attractiveness that they should have. And at the same point, we have a lot of skilled workforce in our companies, and we have to make sure that they don't stand still, that we have as well this upskilling or reskilling that was mentioned before. So if we have a competitive advantage in Europe towards other areas, then it is probably our strong education system and what we can do with it.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I think very clear. We are coming to the close of our panel here, but I would like to close it with one question and would like to ask you to be very brief, very short on that as well, because we have touched upon the many challenges that we have here together. If it comes to collaboration, coordination as well, cooperation between the, let's say, the industry side and the political side. Quick question: are we on a good track over here? Are we seeing this positively for the coming years that we can manage that jointly together, or rather not? So if you would be very brief with your comment, and I would start with you, Maria.
I think yes. If I understood well your question, you are saying that how is the cooperation between the policymakers and the private sector, correct? I think that is very good. The European Parliament is an example of that, a very open house. It's a pity that with the COVID we are not physically open as we used to be, but we are open through virtual means, and we have many platforms like the present Intergroup and other networks where we constantly speak and dialogue with the stakeholders. So we really listen to the stakeholders, and they are a big help for us when we prepare huge reports that I'm doing now, that covers 11 different sectors so important for our economy, that are the partnerships. So the stakeholders are a very big help, and I listen very carefully to all the words that they say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Rada, what do you believe? Are we on track here?
I think we are getting better. Let's put it this way. I think that we have very good examples of a very strong collaboration. I think we lost some momentum last year during the pandemic, where a lot of things we were not able physically to interact as much, and until we found our way of interacting virtually, we lost some momentum. I think we are gaining now that momentum back, so I'm happy to see that. On a very concrete suggestion, we discussed that these innovations are very often very expensive. So it's expensive. It's private money, it's public money, but anyhow, it's a lot of money. So it's expensive. So I think that strengthening that tie between, green procurement or any type of innovative procurement would help to de-risk in the private sector. There's big investment which needs to be done. So just to be very concrete on how we can improve the collaboration. It's not so much an improvement, it's more an acceleration, because somebody said, and I totally agree, the time is here, the time factor is extremely important. Just looking the immense amount of money which other regions are putting in, let's remain to advanced manufacturing technologies and modernizing the industrial base, then we understand how important this is also for the other regions. So we need to accelerate the implementation.
Thank you, Rada. Ulla, in one sentence, please.
I think, yes, we are getting there, and we are getting better, but we still have a lot to do, and we need to join forces and work very close together to make it happen.
Thank you. Thomas.
We are on the same path because we all know that we have to create a world that our children should live in. We have maybe some different understanding how to get there. Timing was mentioned, but events like this one are very helpful because if we become transparent, if we communicate, we will overcome maybe different viewpoints. But the direction is very clear.
Thank you. Peter, you have the last word on this panel.
Very briefly, direction is clear and shared. I think also this panel is showing how good and open and transparent we are in our relations. And from the research and innovation perspective, I would give it 9 out of 10 because with this partnership, Grasa has mentioned our public-private partnerships under Horizon Europe, we are really on the right track.
Thank you. I think this is a very positive spirit in which we end our discussion today. We have touched upon a lot of subjects, and I want to thank you all on the panel for your dedication, for your readiness to discuss and all the points that you made. If you want to read more about, let's say, innovation policy, we have a new paper in Orgalim, which is on the Orgalim website. It's called Putting Innovation at the Heart of the Twin Transitions and the EU Recovery. And if you want to read more about very concrete suggestions that we have worked out in Orgalim altogether, please look it up, download the paper. I think there will be a slide in a second as well showing you the link. And with that, I would like to thanks again all the panelists, close the panel and lead over again to Maria as the host for the final conclusions and the final remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to first to thank everyone, to thank our moderator, to thank all the participants in the debate. It was a fantastic debate. And to everyone, to European Commissioner Maria Gabriel and all the everyone that has attended the debate. We have discussed many aspects of the future of our industry, from skills and the role of gender to attract more women, more young people for the sectors, the role of research and innovation, the ecosystem, the framework where we discuss bureaucracy, regulation, targets, and I would finalize with some recommendations. It's just examples of recommendations that I notice strongly during this debate. First, the need to be holistic and systemic. For example, in a concrete example, in the industrial strategy, we need an horizontal approach that can accommodate areas like manufacturing. But is one example of this more holistic and systemic approach that we need to have in the future. Second recommendation is the importance of standardization and the need that our standards that have been so good for the hardware are also, we keep that culture for the more digital standards that also involve the software. And for that, the global cooperation is very important on the standardization. Third, that policymakers should look at the difficulties that we have in Europe, our companies, to scale up and deployment, and to try to erase these barriers. Fourthly, it was noticed that very important that our products are sustainable, but not only sustainable, they need to be at the same time safe, competitive, and connected. Fifth point, the importance of not to have fragmentation, the importance of collaboration and partnership, that we need to create European systems. The hydrogen was an example, but this applies to many other areas. And in the resilience and recovery plan, it's very important to invest in research and innovation, but it's also important that we connect and that we have an European approach to the different 27 plans. Last recommendation, taxonomy. We should not allow that taxonomy is a barrier to the new and transversal technologies. So taxonomy has to take into account also the emerging technologies, the new technology, and the more transversal. Also, a systemic approach inside taxonomy will be very welcome. So with these recommendations that are just an example of a long list of recommendations that were done in this seminar, I will close and thank you again, and thank to the Secretariat and all that work that make possible